This is Theology Bits, a ministry of Central Lutheran Church, Eugene, Oregon. I'm Pastor Ben. This video in our Theology Bits series is on gratitude. We are heading into the Thanksgiving week, and we think of gratitude at this time period, but what really is it? Let's explore. What is it for which we are grateful? What causes us to be grateful? Well, there's a fundamental idea in gratitude, and this comes, in my training, comes from the New Testament study, is that the Greek word charis, or the Latin gratus, has really at its root, you see the word grace kind of in it, just like gratitude comes from this, is that it is built on a gift. And that a gift elicits a reaction, a response. But it's a little more than a gift, because we're given a lot of things in this world. Not all of them elicit gratitude, that reaction and response. So what makes it different? Well, a gift that elicits gratitude is something that is valuable to us. And I take this a little bit from David Stendelrast, who works very hard on this topic of gratitude. Those two components are really important. One is that it has to actually be valuable. It has to be something that we really do need and we value. We've all had the experience of being given something that we really were not very excited about. It did not elicit gratitude, or at least genuine gratitude. The second is, it really has to be given. You can't earn it. You can't obtain it through secondary means. It really has to be given. So those two components, sometimes you would call it a free gift. That's probably an overstatement, but just simply the idea that it's given and the idea that it matters to you. And with that comes a response, a reaction. And reactions, of course, are spontaneous. They're not something we control. It is just how we react. And then there's the response, and the response is deliberate. How do we choose to respond? That is, when we receive a gift of something valuable, what happens in us? How do we react? How do we respond? And a primary way that we do react when we receive something that really is valuable to us is gratitude. And it's so much so that these two words, in Greek and in Latin, the same word for gift is the same word for thanks. These are seen as fundamentally the same thing. Now, that had some challenges because in the ancient world, this gratus was expected. That in the Roman world, that the powerful people would give the not very powerful people things, and those who, the not very powerful, had to respond. And if they didn't respond in a particular way, they got in trouble because it was not private, it was not spontaneous, it was very public. So there is this fundamental case of the New Testament wants to do something very different. However, we should recognize what is the reaction and the response. What is gratitude is something we do. It is an action that we present into this world. It is not just an attitude. It is not just a new way of thinking. It's something we're doing. And so what conditions lead us to do those things? And here I'm going to borrow again from Stendelrast of saying, for what are we really grateful? Well, when we receive a gift, we become grateful. It almost is an automatic response, if it really is valuable to us. But how do we have grateful living? That is, when we aren't in the moment receiving a gift. Like, for example, if you are given something that is wrapped up in a present and you're deliberately opening it, the very least, you can recognize I am receiving a gift right now. But often, in a regular grateful living structure, you're not every day opening a present. And you might not even remember that you've been given a gift right now or that it's valuable to you. So how do we take this posture that all the time that we are grateful for the gifts that are coming to us that we sometimes forget? And really quickly, I want to say, posture is not a mindset. And the reason I say that is gratitude is not just one way of thinking as compared to another, because it was built on what you do, how you live. It is an ethic. How do you treat one another? How do you act in the world? That's different than just thinking differently about it. Sometimes gratitude can be seen as just how I'm forcing myself to recognize my situation. And real gratitude is more than that. It is a response. And the first thing to do to be able to have this is to stop. To be able to pause and recognize and name that the way I'm living is filled with gift, and that it is valuable to me. So first, stop. Second, look. Now that I've stopped, I can look and see what is around me, and then finally go. Do something about it. That's Stendelra's 3 points, and it's not especially spiritual. It's just the concept of what is gratitude at all. Here, in a Christian context, we would not say stop. We'd say, be still. Be still and know that I am God. Many of you know that verse well. That idea that in order to have gratefulness to God at all, we need to be able to pause. What does Jesus do at the feeding of the 5,000 before he does anything else? He has everybody sit down. And so, be still. And then if you're still, you can see right now as an opportunity to be grateful. And there we can, and the word look is absolutely fine, from being still, we are compelled to examine where are we and what has God given to us and how valuable God's grace is for us. The word grace is the word gift, is the word gratitude. How valuable this is to us, and so we can go do something. We recognize what Luther calls our daily bread, what God gives us every day. And so that leads us to go do something. But what is it that we are doing? Well, the most natural thing with gratitude is that it leads us to a posture of sharing. I've been given, how do I share with others? But it might lead to some other things too. That's pretty general and pretty secular. In a very Christian context, it might lead us to saying, I'm recognizing the gifts I've received from God. Lead me to confess. To confess my faith, which is essentially saying, I am human, you are God. That's what we call the confession of faith. We use the words of the apostles, our Nicene Creed, but really what you're saying is, I'm human, you're God. Or you can say you're confessing your sinfulness, which is once again the same thing. I'm human, you are God. Really what it might lead us to is a posture of worship. That gratitude, that we've received a gift, recognizes who God is. That in the divine service, what Luther called Gottesdienst, is the way God acts. And it's the way we act toward God, the way God acts toward us. It's one word. There's no good English translation. That's what worship is. That we recognize who we are, whose we are, and then what are we going to do about it? We're going to worship. But I want to make one thing very clear, is that in a Christian context, what are we giving thanks for? We're giving thanks to God. We are not necessarily providing thanks to our life situation. Because there are many life situations we do not give thanks for. Some are ambivalent and some are decidedly negative. But that's not what we're being called to do. That is, our life situations are difficult. There's sometimes we are thankful, sometimes we're not. We give thanks for God and God's grace. Thanks to God directly. Think of what St. Paul says in almost every one of his letters, with the exception of Galatians, where he says at the very beginning, I thank my God every time I remember you. He doesn't say, I give thanks to you every time I remember you. Or he doesn't even say, I give thanks because of the things you've done. Instead, it's simply, I give thanks to God. Where is the real gift that I have received? Where is that real value that is present for me? It's in who God is, in our life, which leads us to confess and to worship. Confess our faith, worship our God. Our thankfulness is not just we're glad that people around us have helped us. Our thankfulness is of the true gift, which is the Christ gift. Christ being given to us at all times. That's our real daily bread that we receive and that we live in all the time, so that our grace, our thanks, our gratus is to God, leading to how we live our own lives. This has been Theology Bits. I'm Pastor Ben.